The morning fog hung low over Naval Base Coronado, turning the steel-gray buildings into ghostly silhouettes. Petty Officer Elena Reyes jogged across the training yard, the soles of her boots kicking up wet sand, the cold air biting at her skin. Dawn PT was always brutal, but it was the rhythm she depended on, a pulse to keep herself grounded. Her hair was pulled into a tight braid, sweat already beading on her forehead, and her dog tags clinked softly against the silver Trident pinned alongside them. For the past year she had learned to endure the stares, the whispers, the skeptical glances that followed her across the compound. She wasn't just another sailor. She was one of the few women embedded in a special operations logistics team, trained to handle operations most wouldn't even hear about. And yet, every day, she faced the unspoken question in everyone's eyes. Can she really keep up? Elena didn't think about it. She ran, she worked, she trained, she survived. But today there was an edge in the air, a tension she couldn't shake. She pushed past the armory, her eyes scanning for the usual obstacles, stray equipment, inattentive recruits, the endless clatter of drills and shouted commands. And that's when she saw them. Two junior sailors, barely out of boot camp, were roughhousing by the side of the building. They moved with the casual arrogance of youth, arms flailing, voices loud, unaware of how small the world really was compared to the one Elena had learned to navigate. As she approached, the laughter shifted, mutating into something sharper, something deliberate. "Watch where you're going," the taller one muttered, bumping her shoulder with more force than necessary. Elena stopped, calm, neutral. The officers had drilled her on restraint. She had to stay professional. She gave a slight step aside, letting them pass. The second sailor, however, wasn't satisfied. In a sudden, thoughtless gesture, he grabbed the front of her vest, hard, yanking her backward. "Hey, relax," he sneered. "We're just messing with you." Elena froze, not because of fear, but because of recognition. In that split second, her eyes caught a glint beneath his sneer, a flicker of realization, a hesitation, and then his eyes dropped. To her dog tags. The silver seal Trident hanging there was unmistakable. Time slowed. The laughter that had seemed normal now felt hollow, distorted. The hand gripping her vest faltered. "Ma'am," the word escaped the sailor's lips, unsteady, a tremor of something like fear or awe undermining his bravado. Elena's jaw tightened. She didn't answer. Instead, she studied him. His wide eyes, the slow withdrawal of his hand. Something in the boy's demeanor told her he recognized her, not as a petty officer, not as a sailor, but as something far more dangerous. And yet, before she could ask the question burning in her mind, "How do you know what that means?" the sharp, piercing sound of an alarm tore across the base. It wasn't the usual bell for drills or fire. This alarm had a weight, a pulse of danger that reverberated straight into her chest. Her instincts ignited, every muscle in her body tensed, honed over years of training. She knew the tone. Internal compromise, emergency code red. The two junior sailors stepped back, suddenly insignificant, their previous bravado gone in an instant. Elena didn't wait for them. She ran toward the command building, sand and sweat slipping off her gloves, her breath forming clouds in the chill air. Inside, officers and senior enlisted personnel clustered around a large table, screens flickering with images of the base, satellite footage, and a map of a warehouse outside the perimeter. The atmosphere was electric with tension. Elena's Commander Dalton, turned toward her with an expression that was somewhere between concern and disbelief. "Reyes," he said, voice low but sharp, "we have a breach. Evidence suggests it's not just a theft, it's a coordinated internal compromise." Her stomach dropped. The warehouse off-base was the one used to store encrypted mission archives. Some of the files contained operations so classified they didn't officially exist. She felt a cold prickle run down her spine. Then her gaze fell on the screen, on a surveillance still paused in static. A figure limped through the shadows, broad shoulders, right leg slightly compromised. She froze. Only one person walked like that. Only one person she had believed was dead for over a year. Her mind screamed denial, confusion. Commander Dalton noticed her frozen stare. "Raise, what is it?" Her voice was barely audible. I think I know who that is." The room went still. Murmurs ceased. Officers glanced at each other, some in disbelief, others in alarm. Dalton frowned, tapping the image. "Explain." "Alina Reyes," she said, her voice gaining strength. "That's Chief Petty Officer Mark Kellen. He didn't make it out of Syria. He died covering me." "Then how?" Dalton began, but he cut himself off, eyes narrowing. A young intelligence officer interjected, pointing at the monitor. "The timestamps show him here, 2 hours ago, at this warehouse." Alina felt the world shift beneath her feet. Her mind replayed the last moments she had with Kellen, the firefight, the explosion, the way he had thrown himself over her as the building collapsed. She had seen him taken by fire. She had mourned him. And now the footage suggested he had survived. Why steal the mission records? She whispered to herself, more than to anyone else. Dalton's voice was grim, almost a growl. Because whatever happened on that operation, someone wants it buried and someone wants it revealed in the wrong hands. Her throat tightened. Memories she had tried to lock away, missions gone wrong, decisions she had made under fire, suddenly clawed their way back. The man who should have been dead was alive, and whoever he was now working for or running from had just sent the base into chaos. Then, over the intercom, an urgent voice crackled. "Commander Dalton, security requests raise immediately. We have a situation outside the barracks." Alina's heart skipped. This wasn't routine. This wasn't drill. A single thought crystallized in her mind. Someone wants me, and they've been waiting for this moment for a long time. She straightened, voice steady despite the storm inside. "Lead the way," she said, and before anyone could respond, she was already moving toward the unknown, aware of every shadow, every whisper of wind, every heartbeat that could mean the difference between life and death. The junior sailors had vanished, but one of them would remember her dog tags, the silver trident, and the silent message they carried. And Alina Reyes knew one thing with absolute certainty. Today, nothing would be the same. The courtyard outside the barracks was a flurry of movement, lit by the harsh glare of floodlights and the blinking red glow of emergency alarms. Sailors and MPs formed tight perimeters, rifles clutched, voices taut with urgency. Alina moved with purpose, weaving through the chaos, her mind racing faster than her boots could carry her. She didn't notice Dalton at her heels until his shadow fell across her path. "Raise," he barked, voice low but edged with command. "Stand down. You don't know what you're walking into." Alina ignored him. Her instincts screamed that waiting would only slow her down. Every muscle in her body remembered training she hadn't thought she'd need in months. But this wasn't a drill. This was raw, unpredictable danger, and someone had already left a message that she was at the center of it. The first clue was simple, yet chilling. A single set of footprints leading from the main gate toward the northern supply depot. She recognized them immediately, not the hurried scuttle of a thief, but deliberate, measured steps. Someone was calling her, leaving a trail meant to be followed. Dalton caught up, panting slightly, his face pale in the cold light. "Raise, you're not going alone," he warned, hand brushing toward his holster. "We need perimeter control first." "I'll be fine," she said sharply, not turning to meet his eyes. Her gaze was locked on the footprints, on the faint scuff marks in the sand, on the whisper of a story she wasn't ready to hear, but couldn't ignore. Dalton hesitated, tension pulling at his jaw. He had seen her make decisions under fire that most officers would have called reckless. He had trusted her instinct, but the stakes this time, he could feel it, were higher than anything he'd faced. As Alina approached the depot, a faint metallic glint caught her attention. There, in the dim, swinging light of the floodlights, lay a single dog tag on the ground, her breath caught in her throat. It wasn't hers. It was Kellen's. Attached to it was a scrap of fabric, torn from a military uniform sleeve, frayed and weathered, and scribbled in jagged ink were 4 words. "He die alone." Every nerve in Alina's body went taut. Her fingers tightened around her gloves. The blood in her veins ran cold. Dalton arrived behind her, swearing softly under his breath. "Someone wants to unsettle you," he muttered. "No," Alina said, her voice tight with restrained fury. "Someone wants me to remember." A security chief jogged up, sweat dripping down his temples. "Ma'am, we found tracks leading further into the supply area. Whoever left this didn't flee. They moved deliberately, almost like they were expecting someone." Alina studied the footprints, recognizing the confident cadence of someone trained. Each step was precise, intentional, not a predator fleeing, a predator waiting. Dalton's eyes followed hers. "Raise, you're saying this is Kellen." She didn't answer. Her mind was racing, turning over fragments of memories she had buried deep. The mission in Syria, the ambush, the fire, the explosion, the black smoke that had swallowed him whole. Every memory screamed at her. He's supposed to be dead. And yet, there was no denying it. The message, the footprints, the dog tag, it all pointed to one impossible conclusion. Then her communicator crackled to life. "Raise, this is security. You need to move back immediately. Possible armed intrusion reported near maintenance exit." Alina's pulse spiked. Her eyes flicked to Dalton. "This is it. Whoever left the message, they're still here." Dalton's gaze hardened. "Raise, this could be a trap." Alina's lips pressed into a thin line. "Everything in my life has been a trap," she whispered, "except I'm the only one who knows how to survive it." She moved toward the maintenance exit, the cold night air whipping around her. The floodlights created long, distorted shadows, stretching like fingers across the asphalt. Each shadow seemed to twist and turn with a life of its own. A sudden noise, metal scraping against metal, made her freeze. She crouched instinctively, scanning the perimeter. Movement. A figure darted behind a storage container. "Alina," Dalton called, voice urgent. "Stop." She didn't. She could feel the pull, the undeniable magnetic force drawing her closer. The figure moved with a limp, a distinct gait she would recognize anywhere. Her stomach dropped. Only one person walked like that. Only one person she had believed gone forever. Mark Kellen. Alina's heart raced. Memories of his laugh, his anger, his quiet intensity flooded back. The missions, the firefights, the nights spent planning operations they hoped the world would never know. He was alive. Alive, and he wanted her to find him. But as she closed the distance, another detail struck her. His uniform was tattered, stained, and unfamiliar. He wasn't in standard Navy issue. Something had changed. He looked different. Hardened, raw, scarred, not just physically, but in the way his eyes searched the perimeter. Dalton and a squad of MPs caught up just as Alina reached the last cover point. He raised his weapon, uncertainty and fear warring in his gaze. "Raise, step back." Alina ignored him. Every fiber of her being screamed that this was the truth she had been chasing, the truth that the base, the Navy, the world, perhaps, had tried to bury. "Kellen," she called softly. The limp froze. A head turned, eyes wide, wary, recognition, relief, pain. "Alina," he rasped, voice hoarse, almost unrecognizable. I could." She dropped her stance slightly, not trusting the air between them. "Mark, what happened? You were supposed to be dead." He shook his head, every movement slow, deliberate, careful. "I was meant to die, but they lied. Everything we thought was over, it's not. They left me to vanish." Dalton shouted from the perimeter. "Ma'am, you can't, he's compromised, stand down." Kellen's eyes darted toward Dalton, then back to Alina. "Listen to me," he said urgently, voice low. If they wanted me dead, they'll come for you next, and you have to choose, follow Dalton or follow me. Your call, but time is gone." Alina's pulse hammered against her ribs. Her mind raced, weighing loyalty against instinct, training against survival. She had trusted Dalton with her life countless times, but Kellen, he had been there. He had saved her life once before in fire and blood with no thought for himself. And now he was telling her that everything she believed, every command, every order, every report, was a lie. Her hand instinctively brushed her dog tags, the silver trident heavy against her chest, the symbol of everything she had worked for, everything she had earned, and everything that now carried a question mark. Kellen's lips pressed together in a tight line. "We don't have time. I can explain, but you have to move, now." Dalton was advancing. Commands shouted, weapons raised, but Alina only heard the rasp of Kellen's voice and the drumbeat of her own instincts. She knew what she had to do. She stepped toward him, and in that instant, a distant crash reverberated across the compound. The sound of security doors being forced open, the unmistakable chaos of someone moving with purpose and force. Kellen's eyes met hers, dark and urgent. "They're here, and they're coming for all of us." Alina swallowed, every nerve alive, every thought converging into a single truth. The mission was never over. And the story she thought had ended had just begun. The command center was chaos incarnate. Red lights flickered across consoles, alarms screamed in a relentless rhythm, and sailors shouted over one another, trying to make sense of what had already spun far beyond comprehension. Alina stood frozen for a moment, every instinct screaming at her that this was no ordinary breach. Not anymore. Dalton appeared at her side, eyes sharp, jaw tight. "Rays, explain this," he demanded, gesturing at the screen. Alina's gaze didn't waver. Her eyes were fixed on the monitor, where a surveillance still from the warehouse blinked back at her. The figure on the screen moved with a deliberate limp, shoulders slightly forward, right leg dragging ever so slightly. She swallowed hard, her voice was barely audible. "That's Mark Kellen." Dalton's brow furrowed. The man who died in Syria." Alina nodded, her stomach churned. Memories she had locked away for months, no, for years, came rushing back. The explosion, the firefight, the smoke, the screams, the sensation of being buried alive in rubble while he had thrown himself over her to shield her from the blast. She had mourned him, believed he was gone, and now he was here. Dalton stared at the screen, the weight of disbelief written across his face. "You're saying he survived, after everything?" "I'm saying," Alina said slowly, her voice gaining steel, "someone wants us to think he's dead, or someone wants us to forget him." The room fell silent. For the first time in months, officers and enlisted personnel stopped shouting, stopped gesturing, and turned to her. The air was thick with tension, the kind that made sweat bead along the back of the neck. Dalton leaned closer, voice low. "Explain, how is this possible?" Alina exhaled, gripping the edge of the console. "We were in Syria, our team was compromised during a classified operation. Kellen, he was supposed to be extracted with the rest of us, but something went wrong. I never found out what because I never expected him to survive." Her words trembled, betraying the calm veneer she tried to hold. The intelligence officer at the terminal cleared his throat. "Sir, timestamps show him here, at this warehouse, 2 hours ago. Footage confirms entry through a side door that's been locked since last week." Dalton's jaw tightened. "Internal compromise," he muttered under his breath. His eyes snapped to Alina. "Rays, are you telling me he's walking among us, that he's compromised?" "I don't know," she admitted. "But whatever happened back then, it's not over, and it's bigger than both of us." Another officer piped up, voice tinged with disbelief. "We've checked the database, sir. No live intel reports indicate he survived. All clearance records show him as KIA. This footage shouldn't exist." Alina's hand moved to her dog tags, brushing against the cold metal of the silver trident. The symbol felt heavier than ever. It was a reminder of the mission, of the oath, of the life she had thought she understood. Dalton's voice snapped her attention back. "Rays, how well did you know him?" Alina's lips pressed into a thin line. "Well enough to know that if he's alive, he's in trouble, and that someone is using his survival as bait." Dalton's eyes narrowed. Bait for whom? Her gaze shifted to the screen again. The footage wasn't clear enough to confirm identity beyond his limp and posture, but it was enough. Enough to know it was him, and enough to know he was in pain, physically and emotionally. She exhaled, voice dropping to a whisper, "For me." Dalton froze. "For you." Alina didn't answer immediately. Her thoughts flickered back to the warehouse, to the dog tag left outside the barracks, to the cryptic message scrawled in hurried ink. "He didn't die alone." "They want me to follow him," she said finally, her words deliberate, measured. "To open something that should remain buried, and they've made sure I'd recognize him." The officers shifted uneasily. "Sir, what are you suggesting?" one asked, voice trembling. Dalton ran a hand over his face. "Rays," he said finally, voice low, sharp. "If this is Kellen and he's alive, everything about our operations, our chain of command, even the files we trust could be compromised. You need to step back." But Alina had already made her decision. The pull of the unknown was too strong, too personal. The need to uncover the truth, to understand why he survived and why now, outweighed protocol, procedure, even loyalty. Before she could move, a young communications officer interrupted, holding a tablet in both hands. "Ma'am, security found a note at the northern maintenance exit. It's addressed to you." Alina's pulse spiked. Dalton stiffened. "A note from?" The officer shook his head. "Unknown, but the handwriting matches a military-issued pen, and the wording," he hesitated, "it says, 'Don't trust Dalton.'" Alina's stomach dropped. The words were simple, stark, but they carried weight enough to fracture everything she thought she knew. Dalton's face went unreadable, a mask of control slipping at the edges. "Rays, what?" "Show me," she demanded, cutting him off. The officer handed her the tablet. She swiped to open the message, eyes scanning the cryptic note. 3 words, no signature, no explanation, just, "Don't trust Dalton." Her breath hitched. For a moment the room felt impossibly small, the air thick and suffocating. Dalton's eyes flicked from the tablet to her face, searching for understanding, for trust, for a signal that she wasn't already questioning him. Alina swallowed hard. "Why now?" she whispered. "Why would Kellen leave a warning like this?" Before Dalton could answer, the room's lights flickered violently. The alarm screamed again, louder this time. Overhead speakers crackled, and a distorted voice barked unintelligible orders, an electronic interference that sent a shiver down everyone's spine. Dalton cursed under his breath, moving toward the main console. "Someone is inside our systems. They've compromised our perimeter." Alina's eyes narrowed. She moved toward the map display, tracking movements, shadows, entry points. Every instinct screamed, "They're coming for the files. They're coming for Kellen. They're coming for me." Her fingers tightened around her gloves. She could almost feel him, the ghost of the man she had thought dead. He had survived for a reason, and that reason was now tied to her. A sudden sound, faint but distinct, cut through the chaos. A metallic scrape, a whisper of movement near the entrance to the command center. Dalton's hand went to his holster. "Stay behind me," he ordered. Alina didn't move. Her eyes were fixed on the perimeter doors, her mind racing ahead, imagining the possibilities, the faces, the danger. The sound grew louder. A shadow flickered across the glass. She recognized the gate instantly, the same limp she had memorized in the footage. Her heart skipped. Mark Kellen alive. And whatever had brought him back, whatever message he had left, was about to rewrite everything she thought she knew. Alina's voice was barely audible, trembling with a mixture of awe and terror. "He's here." Dalton's eyes narrowed, gun trained on the door. "Who?" She didn't answer. She only knew one thing for certain. The mission wasn't over, and the man who was supposed to be dead was standing just outside the door. The room held its collective breath. And then, before anyone could react, the lights went out. The sudden blackout plunged the command center into a thick, oppressive darkness. Alarms screamed in the background, their wailing echoing off the walls like a chorus of distant gunfire. The faint red emergency lights flickered weakly, casting long, jittering shadows across the room. Alina's heartbeat pounded in her ears, each thump syncing with the rhythm of her training, her survival instincts sharpened to a knife's edge. Dalton moved first, his silhouette slicing across the dim glow. "Stay close," he barked, voice steady but urgent. Every muscle in his body radiated tension, a coiled predator ready to strike. He reached for the console's flashlight, cutting a narrow beam through the darkness. Alina followed, senses screaming. She could feel the presence of someone else, a deliberate movement just beyond the red light. Her gut twisted. Every shadow, every scrape of metal, every whisper of sound felt deliberate, not random. Then she saw it. A single dog tag lay on the polished concrete floor, half hidden beneath the wheel of a nearby command vehicle. Her breath caught. It wasn't hers. It was Dalton. It was Mark Kellen. The metallic glint of the silver Trident reflected the faint emergency light. Alina's fingers itched to reach out. Her pulse raced. She could feel the weight of every memory, every firefight, every mission, every moment of loss settling on her chest like a physical weight. Attached to the dog tag was a scrap of desert-patterned fabric, frayed at the edges. A hastily scrawled note rested on top, the ink smudged as if it had been written in haste. Alina's eyes narrowed as she read the words. "Echi die alone." The message sent a chill through her spine. Her hands trembled slightly. Someone had left this for her deliberately, someone who knew she would understand the meaning. Dalton's voice cut through the silence. "Raise, what is it?" She turned, her eyes blazing in the dim red glow. "It's a warning, from Kellen, or someone who knows what happened to him." Dalton's jaw tightened. "Then why leave it here, in the dark, in the middle of the compound?" "Because," Alina said slowly, her mind working faster than her tongue, "whoever did this wants me to find it, to follow it, to uncover what's buried." The young security chief who had followed them into the room spoke up, his voice trembling. "Ma'am, there's more, footprints, leading away from the barracks. They weren't running. They were moving deliberately, as if expecting someone to follow." Alina's heart hammered. The tracks were precise, calculated. The kind of movement that only someone trained in combat, in survival, could leave behind. And they were leaving it all for her to discover. Dalton took a step forward, his face a mask of concern and command. "Raise, you can't go chasing this. Whoever left this is armed, prepared. We don't know their numbers, their plan, or what they're capable of. This could be a trap." Alina's gaze never wavered from the trail. Her voice was low, steady, full of conviction. "Then it's a trap we need to walk into. Because he's alive, Dalton. And if he's alive, someone wants me to see him and to know the truth." The security chief shifted uncomfortably, glancing between Dalton and Alina. "Sir, ma'am, there's more. The perimeter cameras, before they were taken offline, caught someone moving near the northern maintenance exit. It matches the limping gait we saw in the warehouse footage." Dalton's face went pale. "The limp," he muttered under his breath. Recognition and fear flickered in his eyes. "It can't be." Alina's pulse quickened. "It is him," she said. "Mark Kellen, alive, and he's left this trail for me." Dalton ran a hand over his face, frustration and disbelief mingling in a tense line of his jaw. "Raise, you know what this means. If Kellen survived, the mission we thought was over, it's not over. And it's bigger than anything we've trained for, bigger than this base. Bigger than the Navy itself." Alina's eyes narrowed. She swallowed hard. Every instinct screamed that Dalton was telling the truth, yet every fiber of her being screamed to trust the evidence before her: the dog tag, the note, the footprints. She crouched and examined the dog tag closer, brushing her fingers over the silver trident. The familiar weight was grounding, but the memory it carried was almost unbearable. The trident represented more than survival. It represented sacrifice, trust, and the kind of loyalty that forged warriors. Dalton's voice drew her back to the present. "Raise, step back. Let me handle this. You don't know who you're walking into." Her eyes met his, unyielding. "I know enough," she said. "I know that Kellen didn't die. I know that someone is manipulating the entire chain of command. And I know that if I don't follow this trail, I'll never forgive myself when it's too late." The tension between them was palpable. Years of camaraderie, of mutual respect, of mentorship, hung in the air, stretching thin as a tightrope. Dalton's expression hardened, his hands gripping his holster. "Raise, if you go out there, you may not come back." Alina stood straight and unwavering. "Then I'll make sure I do." At that moment, a faint metallic scrape echoed from the maintenance exit. The hairs on the back of Alina's neck stood on end. The sound was deliberate, a whisper of movement, a predator calling its prey. Dalton's head snapped toward the noise. "Stay behind me," he ordered, raising his weapon. Alina didn't move. She could feel the presence of someone beyond the door, a person trained to anticipate every step, every reaction. She could almost see him in the darkness, a ghost from a past she had never fully let go of. A shadow moved past the emergency lights, limping, deliberate, controlled. Alina's pulse thundered in her chest. Her lips parted, breath catching in her throat. "He's here." Dalton's eyes followed hers, narrowing. "Who?" "Alina," the word came from the shadow itself, faint but unmistakable, raspy, pained, familiar. Her knees went weak. Mark Kellen alive. The man who had been buried in her memory for over a year was standing there, just beyond reach, his eyes scanning, calculating, filled with warning and urgency. Dalton's weapon shifted, tension radiating from his frame. "Raise, don't." But Alina stepped forward. Every rule, every protocol, every instinct of obedience was overridden by something stronger: loyalty to the truth, to the man who had saved her life, to the mission that had never truly ended. The red lights flickered, the shadows danced, and the air felt electric with anticipation. Alina's fingers brushed the dog tag again, grounding herself. Kellen's voice, hoarse and urgent, cut through the chaos. "Alina, listen. They lied to you. They lied to all of us. You need to trust me." Dalton's face twisted with disbelief, anger, and confusion. "He's compromised. Step away." Alina didn't, her gaze locked on Kellen. The years, the missions, the fire, the loss, all converged in that moment. She had no choice. The footsteps behind the maintenance doors grew louder. Someone else was coming. Kellen's eyes flicked toward the sound. "They're here," he whispered, "and they're not just after me. They're after everything we've ever done." Alina swallowed hard, feeling the weight of truth pressing down on her. Every instinct, every memory, every decision she had ever made had led her here. And now, with Kellen alive and the shadows closing in, she realized the mission she thought was over had just begun. The courtyard outside the maintenance exit was empty. The night was silent, except for the faint scrape of metal on concrete. But Alina knew one thing: whatever awaited them beyond that door, it would change everything. And she had to be ready. The vault was cold, sterile, a windowless concrete chamber that hummed with the low, mechanical rhythm of life support systems and climate controls. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, their flickering casting long shadows along the walls lined with steel cabinets and reinforced safes. Alina stepped inside, Dalton trailing behind her reluctantly, the weight of authority and skepticism pressing against her every move. This was no ordinary file room. Every inch of the chamber spoke of secrecy, of information so sensitive it could shift the balance of entire operations if exposed. The mission she was about to unearth had been sealed under layers of classification, hidden behind codes and encrypted access levels, locked so tightly it had been almost forgotten, except by the one who left the trail. Alina's fingers hovered over the access terminal, a secure interface that responded to retina scans, handprints, and passcodes she alone was cleared to use. The screen lit up under her touch, a cascade of encrypted directories appearing. Operation Grim Echo stared back at her from the list, stark, unyielding, and foreboding. Her stomach tightened. The name itself was a memory, a scar etched into her psyche from a time when missions ended in fire, betrayal, and the screams of those who had fallen. She had buried those memories deep, telling herself they were gone, that they were lost to history. But the evidence before her, the dog tag, the note, Kellen's shadow in the darkness, reminded her the past never truly stayed buried. Dalton's voice broke the silence. "Rays, stop. That file isn't meant to be opened under any circumstances. It's sealed Tier 1. You have no idea what's waiting for you in there." Alina met his gaze, her eyes hard, unwavering. "I already know. I've known for months. This isn't just about me or Kellen. It's about the truth. And if I don't see it, if I don't expose it, someone else will die because of it." Dalton's jaw clenched. "Exposing it could bring down half the chain of command. You'll make enemies that won't hesitate to kill to keep it hidden." She pressed the terminal with deliberate precision. The layers of security dissolved under her clearance, one by one. Lines of encrypted code flashed across the screen. Satellite images, debrief logs, and communication transcripts appeared. Then, corruption. Some data was missing. Entire logs erased, timestamps wiped, audio feeds deleted. Someone had gone through this file carefully, methodically, deliberately concealing the truth. And yet a hidden folder remained, blinking at the bottom of the directory. Not Navy encrypted. Something cruder. Something rushed. She clicked it. The screen went black for a heartbeat before a video loaded. Helmet cam footage. Her own helmet cam. The timestamp was from the night they had thought was their final operation in Syria. The footage showed the crumbling hallways, the echoing gunfire, smoke and dust swirling like ghosts. And then Kellen appeared, limping, dragging a wounded operative with him through the chaos. Alina's breath caught. She remembered this part vividly. The building had exploded shortly after she blacked out. She had assumed it was over, assumed Kellen was gone, but the footage continued. He wasn't retreating. He was moving forward, toward a hidden room at the end of the hallway, a door reinforced with steel, a faint flicker of light beneath it. And inside someone was screaming. The camera's shakiness made it hard to see, but the uniform was unmistakable. A U.S. operative tied and gagged. Not a civilian, not a foreign combatant. One of their own. Alina felt the world tilt. Kellen hadn't just saved her. He had gone deeper, into a room no one was supposed to know existed, for someone they had been told to ignore. Her hands shook slightly as she scrolled forward. Dalton's voice came from behind her, low and strained. "Rays, what are you seeing?" She swallowed hard, unable to take her eyes off the screen. "Something they never told us. Someone we trusted. They weren't just careless. They were deliberate. And Kellen, he went in knowing he'd be alone." Dalton exhaled sharply, rubbing his face. "That room, that's off the books. No one knows it exists except," his voice faltered. Alina's eyes narrowed, "except someone who wanted it buried." The helmet cam footage continued. Kellen shoved open the steel door. The camera's light caught the face of the person inside, pale, terrified, eyes wide with disbelief and recognition. And then the video cut abruptly. Nothing, black silence. Her stomach sank. Whoever had scrubbed this data didn't want the truth to be seen. Not by anyone, not by her. Dalton's face was pale. They covered it all up. Why would they do that? Alina shook her head. Because the truth doesn't serve their agenda, and because someone doesn't want Kellen or me talking about it. A sudden metallic click echoed in the vault. Both Alina and Dalton tensed. Her hand went to her holster. The sound repeated, soft, deliberate, echoing off the concrete walls. "Someone's here," Dalton muttered. Alina's eyes darted to the door. Her pulse raced. Every training drill, every scenario she had faced before honed her instincts. This wasn't random. Whoever entered the vault wasn't careless. They were expecting her. A shadow flickered just beyond the red emergency lights. Movement, calculated, controlled, familiar. The sailor who had grabbed her vest earlier stepped into the dim light, his expression one of terror and urgency. "Ma'am, I didn't mean to touch you. I didn't know he told me to do it." Alina's brow furrowed. "Who told you?" He swallowed hard, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting someone else to appear. "The man with the limp, he said you'd come here. He said you'd open that file. And he told me to give you this." A folded piece of paper trembled in his hands. Alina took it carefully, unfolding it to reveal 3 simple words. "Don't trust Dalton." Her blood ran cold. The words were stark, simple, yet they carried the weight of every lie she had been told, every hidden agenda she had never questioned. Dalton's face remained unreadable, but the tension radiating from him was palpable. Before she could process it, the vault lights flickered and cut out entirely. Total darkness swallowed the room. The hum of the systems was the only sound, punctuated by shallow, tense breaths. Alina's instincts screamed. This was no longer about uncovering old missions. This was about survival. Someone had anticipated her every move. Someone knew the weight of the truth she now held. Her fingers tightened on the note, on the dog tags, on the helmet cam footage still burning in her mind. She had crossed into dangerous territory, territory that would demand every ounce of skill, every shred of instinct she possessed. And somewhere out in the darkness of the base, Kellen was waiting, watching, leading her into a truth far larger than either of them could have imagined. Darkness swallowed the vault. The hum of the climate systems was the only sound, but it was suffocating, vibrating through the concrete walls, filling the chamber with a low, insistent tension. Alina's eyes darted to Dalton, his figure a dark silhouette against the dim red emergency lights. Both of them were tense, every nerve firing, every muscle coiled. Her hand tightened around the dog tags, the silver trident cold and grounding against her palm. Her other hand hovered over her holster. Instinct told her that whoever was here had been waiting for her to open the file. That meant every step she had taken, every second she had hesitated, had been anticipated. From somewhere in the darkness came a soft, deliberate metallic scrape. Alina froze, her breath hitched. The sound was methodical, confident. It wasn't the random stumble of someone panicked. It was a predator making its move, measuring the hunt. Dalton's voice was a low growl. "Stay behind me. Whatever's out there isn't here for us to negotiate with." Alina didn't move. Her eyes searched the shadows, every corner of the vault. And then she saw it, a faint movement by the far storage cabinets, just enough to make her pulse spike. A shadow shifted, dragging a limp leg, cautious but controlled. Her stomach dropped. The limp was unmistakable. It was Kellen, alive. She blinked, trying to focus. The years of memory, the firefights, the missions, the way he had thrown himself into the line of fire to save her, flooded back. And yet this man looked different, hardened, scarred, a ghost of the operative she had known, but alive and moving with lethal intent. "Kellen," she whispered. The shadow paused, head tilted slightly, eyes scanning, calculating. Then he stepped into the red emergency light, just enough for her to see the familiar face, grim, battle-worn, but unmistakably him. "Alina," he rasped, voice hoarse. "I didn't have a choice, I had to disappear, and now they're here." Dalton's eyes narrowed. Ray stepped back, this man's compromised. Alina's heart hammered, but she didn't move. "Compromised?" she demanded, voice steady despite the tension. "He saved me. He's alive, and he's the one who left the dog tag, the note, the trail." Kellen's gaze flicked to Dalton, cold and unreadable. Trust no one who doesn't understand what really happened in Syria, not the chain of command, not the files, not anyone who tells you what's safe. Dalton's face darkened. Mark, what are you saying? Before Kellen could answer, a loud crash reverberated through the vault. One of the steel cabinets had been slammed open, papers fluttering like startled birds. The security officer who had brought the note earlier yelled, panicked. "Ma'am, someone's in. They've breached the back access." Alina's pulse spiked. The vault had been infiltrated. Someone, or multiple someones, had anticipated every move she had made. They weren't here for negotiation. They were here to erase everything. Kellen moved with precision, limping but fast. "Get behind me. They won't hesitate. This isn't a fight to reason with. They're cleaning up their own mess and you're in the way." Dalton protested, his authority breaking into urgency. "Reyes, you don't know what you're doing. You can't trust him." Alina didn't answer. Her instinct told her one thing: Kellen was the key. If she didn't follow him, if she didn't understand what had happened, lives, hers, his, and countless others, would be at risk. A metallic click echoed from the far side of the vault. Shadows shifted again, and she could hear the soft shuffle of multiple feet, trained feet, deliberate, calculated. Alina's hands moved to her holster. Dalton reached for his gun as well, but Kellen stopped them both with a hand sharp and commanding. "Not yet. They want a reaction. They want you to panic. Stay calm. Follow my lead." The lights flickered, the red emergency glow stretching and shrinking across the walls. Dust floated in the air, shimmering in the dim light, like fragments of a world that had been broken and left behind. Then Kellen spoke again, voice low, urgent. "Alina, the footage you saw, what I saved, it's only half the truth. The person in that room, it wasn't just an operative, it was evidence, proof of betrayal at the highest levels. If they find it, if it disappears, everything collapses. And that's why they're here. That's why I came back." Her stomach twisted. Betrayal. Evidence. Proof that someone in their chain of command had orchestrated the mission's failure, had left him for dead. Her mind raced. Every suspicion she had felt, every uneasy glance from Dalton, every erased log in the file, pieces of a puzzle coming together. A scraping sound grew louder. The intruders were moving closer. Alina could see the faint outline of their figures through the emergency light, masked, armed, precise. This was not a random attack. It was a targeted strike. Kellen's eyes met hers. "We move now, quietly. One misstep and they'll kill everything we care about, starting with you." Dalton's hand tightened around his holster. "Mark, I still don't understand." Alina cut him off, voice low and fierce. "There's nothing left to understand. We follow him, or we die in the dark." Kellen nodded once sharply. He moved toward the vault's emergency exit, keeping to the shadows. Alina and Dalton followed, each step deliberate, silent, tense. The corridor beyond the vault stretched into darkness, lit only by the faint red emergency lights. The smell of metal and dust was thick in the air. Every footstep echoed like a warning. Then a soft click behind them, a door unlocked. They froze. A shadow flitted past the far corner. "Alina," Kellen whispered, "they're testing you. Every move you make is being watched. Every decision is being calculated." Her pulse thundered. "Then we don't give them the satisfaction." They moved again, slow and deliberate, shadows blending with shadows. Every nerve in Alina's body was alive with anticipation and fear. They weren't just navigating a vault or a hallway. They were walking through the remnants of a conspiracy, a mission that had never truly ended, a betrayal buried deep in the folds of classified files and erased logs. Ahead, the faint glimmer of light indicated a stairwell, the exit to the base's maintenance tunnels. Kellen paused, glancing back at her. "Once we go down there, there's no turning back. You'll see the truth, and you'll have to decide, trust me or trust what you thought you knew." Alina swallowed hard, her hand brushing the dog tags again. The silver trident burned against her palm like a compass. She nodded once. "I trust you." Dalton's eyes widened, a flash of disbelief crossing his features. "Raze, you don't know what you're doing." But she didn't answer. Her focus was on Kellen, on the mission that had never ended, on the shadows that moved with lethal precision behind them. Every step they took drew them closer to the truth, and closer to danger that could kill them all. The stairwell loomed ahead. The shadows shifted again, and the faint scrape of footsteps grew louder. Alina's breath caught. She could feel them, the hunters closing in. Kellen's hand tightened around hers briefly. "Ready." She nodded, heart pounding. "Let's finish this." And with that, they stepped into the darkness. The maintenance tunnels were cold, and narrow, concrete walls close enough to brush against with outstretched arms. The faint hum of emergency lighting cast long, distorted shadows that danced like specters across the floor. Alina's boots echoed softly against the metal-grated walkway, every sound amplified, every vibration a warning of danger. She followed Kellen closely, her senses on overdrive. Every step, every breath, every heartbeat was measured. She could feel the tension radiating off him, the limping gait he tried to hide but could not fully mask. He was alert, scanning the tunnel ahead, listening to echoes she couldn't hear, feeling vibrations in the floor she couldn't sense. She had never known a warrior like him, until now. Dalton trailed behind, tense, eyes darting from shadow to shadow. His hand never left his holster, fingers tight on the grip. "Raze, are you sure about this?" His voice was low, almost pleading. "This isn't just a mission anymore, it's a trap. They've anticipated every step you've taken, every decision you've made. They're not leaving anything to chance." Alina's eyes flicked to him briefly. "I know, that's why I'm not hesitating, because hesitation gets people killed, and right now I trust him." Kellen glanced back at her, expression unreadable, but his eyes softened just enough to convey the silent acknowledgement she needed. He pressed forward, limping but purposeful, guiding them deeper into the network of tunnels. The air was thick with dust and the faint metallic tang of machinery. Pipes ran along the ceiling, dripping condensation in slow, irregular patterns that echoed through the corridor. Every sound seemed amplified, every shadow a potential threat. Suddenly, a low, mechanical hum vibrated through the floor, a warning that Alina's instincts recognized instantly. Movement. Not distant, close, calculated, not human, or at least not entirely. Kellen crouched suddenly, signaling them to halt. "Drones," he whispered, voice barely audible. "Automated security. Silent, precise, lethal if they detect heat signatures." Alina's pulse quickened. Her hands moved instinctively to her holster, but Kellen held up a hand. "Not yet," he murmured. "We can't engage them here. They're programmed to detect movement. Any sudden action will trigger alarms. We move slowly, stay in shadows, stay close to the walls." Dalton gritted his teeth, voice tense. "You're telling me we're sneaking past military-grade drones, alone?" Alina didn't answer. She focused entirely on Kellen's movements, copying his every step. The man had survived impossible odds before. She could trust his lead. The first drone appeared, a low, hovering sphere, silent except for the faint whir of rotors. Its single sensor glowed a dim red as it scanned the corridor. Alina froze. Dalton froze. Kellen's eyes narrowed. The drone passed by, moving methodically along the hallway. Kellen pressed against the wall, dragging them silently in his wake. The seconds stretched endlessly, each one a potential death sentence. They slipped past it, hearts hammering. But as they turned a corner, the unmistakable sound of metal boots echoed behind them. Human pursuers. Armed, trained, deliberate. "They've deployed ground teams," Kellen muttered, voice tight with urgency. "We've been spotted, move." They sprinted down the narrow corridor, the echo of their footsteps masking the soft thrum of drones above. Alina's chest burned, lungs screaming, adrenaline coursing like fire through her veins. She could hear Dalton behind her, cursing under his breath. The the tension in his movements palpable. Ahead, a rusted ladder led to a hatch. Kellen vaulted onto it with surprising agility for his injured leg, Alina following closely, Dalton struggling slightly behind. The hatch opened into a small service chamber above the tunnels, a cramped space filled with pipes, valves, and the faint hiss of steam. Kellen moved to the wall, pressing a sequence of buttons hidden beneath a panel. A concealed door slid open, revealing a small room filled with monitors, filing cabinets, and a single terminal connected to the base's mainframe. Alina's eyes widened. This is a secondary command room. Kellen nodded. They don't want anyone here. This is where they've been monitoring everything, our files, our movements, even the security footage of the vault. They've covered their tracks carefully, but there's enough here to see the truth. Dalton stepped inside, hesitating. You can't trust this. It's a setup. Whoever built this didn't leave it for you to uncover, they left it to trap you. Kellen's gaze swept the room, sharp and urgent. Better a trap than ignorance. You want answers, Alina. They're here. Every file, every conversation, every erased log. This is where the mission never ended. Alina moved to the terminal, fingers flying over the keyboard. Encrypted folders revealed themselves slowly, layer by layer. Each folder contained records of operations, communications, and footage Alina had never seen. And then she found it, a folder marked Grim Echo, classified incident. Her pulse spiked. She opened it. The screen loaded a series of videos, surveillance footage from the night Kellen had disappeared. Her stomach twisted as the first clip played. She saw herself running through the Syrian outpost, smoke and fire everywhere. And then Kellen dragging an unconscious operative toward a concealed elevator. Alina swallowed hard. He saved them, she whispered, voice shaking. He didn't just survive, he saved lives. Kellen limped closer, voice tight. They wanted that operative dead. The mission wasn't just a failure, it was orchestrated. Someone high up, someone we trusted, set us up. I left evidence hidden knowing they'd try to erase it, but I couldn't let them kill anyone else. That's why I'm alive. Dalton's jaw tightened. You mean betrayal? Yes, Kellen said, eyes hard. Betrayal on a scale you can't even imagine. And now they're coming for us, because they can't let this evidence survive. They can't let the truth come out. Suddenly, the faint whir of drones returned, closer this time. A soft red light flickered through the vents above. Alina's pulse spiked. They're here, she whispered. Kellen moved quickly, dragging a chair over to the terminal. We can't fight them here. We need to move the evidence. The files, the footage, everything. If they get it, it's over. We have to get it out, or everything we've done, everything they've done will vanish. Alina nodded, hands steady now, adrenaline sharpening her focus. Together, they began copying the files onto a secure drive, every second counting. The hum of drones grew louder, shadows shifted along the vents, and the metallic scrape of boots echoed from below. Time was slipping away. Then a shot rang out. Concrete cracked as a bullet hit the wall mere inches from Alina's head. Dalton cursed, raising his weapon. They're coming in, he shouted. Kellen grabbed her shoulder, urgency in his eyes. We finish this now, no hesitation. The three of them bolted from the service chamber, files in hand, into the network of tunnels that twisted like a labyrinth beneath the base. Behind them, the sound of pursuit grew louder. Drones, boots, metallic scraping, a perfect storm of death and precision. Alina's heart raced, every instinct screaming at her to keep moving, to survive, to protect the evidence. She glanced at Kellen, their eyes locking for a moment. No words needed. They were in this together. Every shadow, every echo, every step could mean the difference between life and death. And somewhere ahead, the truth waited, hidden, dangerous, and explosive enough to change everything. The tunnels twisted and narrowed, concrete walls echoing every heartbeat, every footstep. Alina, Kellen, and Dalton ran, adrenaline surging, their breaths sharp and ragged. Behind them, the sound of pursuit had grown into a relentless storm, metallic scraping from boots, whirring drones, and the echo of commands shouted in the shadows. Alina's grip on the secure drive was tight, the silver Trident dog tag swinging against her chest, a reminder of every sacrifice, every mission, every lie that had brought them here. She cast a glance at Kellen. The man who had been thought dead limped, scarred, and hardened by betrayal, but he was alive, and his presence was the key to survival, the key to uncovering the truth that had been buried for far too long. "Tunnel exit in 50 meters, Kellen rasped, eyes scanning every shadow. "Once we're outside, we split. They won't expect you to survive this if you separate." Dalton's face was pale, tension etched in every line. "You can't trust splitting up. It's a trap." Alina shook her head. "No, Kellen knows this terrain. If we stick together, we're all dead. I trust him." The corridor ahead opened into a larger chamber, the faint red glow of emergency lights illuminating the space. Pipes ran along the ceiling, dripping condensation, water pooling in shallow rivulets along the floor. The sound of pursuit was closer now, almost deafening in the enclosed space. Then Kellen halted abruptly, pressing a hand to the wall. Alina nearly ran into him. "They're here," he whispered, voice taut. "We've triggered their alert systems, drones in vents, snipers above. This chamber is a kill zone, but there's a way through over the maintenance catwalks. It's risky, but it's the only chance." Alina's stomach dropped. The catwalks were narrow, suspended high above shallow water and machinery, metal grates slick with condensation. One misstep and they could fall, or worse. But she had no choice. The evidence, Kellen, and the truth were all on the line. They climbed, careful, precise, every movement measured. Behind them, the sound of boots grew louder. A red glow from the drones flickered along the walls, scanning, probing, searching. Suddenly, a drone hovered too close. Its sensors locked onto Alina's heat signature. Instinct took over. She swung the secure drive, smashing it against the drone. Sparks flew, the whirring motor screeched, and the drone collapsed, hitting the catwalk railing and clattering to the floor below. Kellen's eyes widened, a brief flicker of admiration in his gaze. "Good reflexes, but we don't have time to celebrate." They moved forward, the catwalks twisting like a maze above the machinery. Every step threatened collapse, every shadow concealed death. And then a shot rang out, ricocheting off the metal grates. Dalton dove, firing in blind desperation, the rounds hitting the walls, metal sparks dancing in the red glow. "Alina, move!" Kellen shouted. She sprinted, heart hammering, the secure drive clutched like a lifeline. The echo of gunfire followed them, close, precise, relentless. Her mind raced. Every memory of Kellen, every piece of footage, every betrayal whispered in the shadows. She had to survive. For the truth. Ahead, the tunnel opened into the exterior maintenance yard. Night had fallen, the sky black and vast, dotted with distant stars that seemed indifferent to the chaos below. Alina scanned the area. Vehicles, storage containers, and scattered equipment offered minimal cover. The intruders were moving fast, cutting off escape routes, forcing them toward the perimeter fence. Kellen limped forward, urgency in every step. "There's a service vehicle over there," he hissed, pointing to a small armored van partially hidden behind containers. "We can use it to get the files out, but we need to split. Dalton, you cover the rear. Alina and I move forward." Dalton hesitated, mistrust and concern battling across his features. "I don't like splitting up." Alina placed a hand on his shoulder, firm. "We don't have a choice. Trust him, trust me." He swallowed hard, nodding reluctantly. "Fine, but don't get yourself killed." Kellen and Alina sprinted toward the vehicle. The night air was crisp, filled with the metallic scent of machinery and ozone from discharged drones. Gunfire echoed from behind, close, terrifyingly close. They dove behind the van, crouched low, adrenaline sharpening every sense. Alina opened the back door, placing the secure drive inside. Kellen's eyes scanned the perimeter. Go, he hissed. She nodded. As she started the engine, Kellen moved to the side, drawing attention, firing a compact sidearm with deadly precision. Every shot was calculated, designed to delay, not kill, to buy seconds. From the shadows, a figure emerged, Dalton, moving carefully, firing to cover their escape. But Alina's eyes were fixed on the road ahead, the secure drive, the truth that could topple entire hierarchies. The vehicle lurched forward, tires screeching against concrete, dodging debris. Kellen sprinted alongside, limping but determined, until a gunshot rang out, hitting the vehicle's side. Sparks flew. Alina swore under her breath. "Inside!" Kellen shouted. He vaulted into the van just as another shot hit the hood. The engine roared to life, and they sped into the night, weaving between containers, dodging drones, gunfire ricocheting off metal walls. Inside the van, Kellen leaned against the door, chest heaving, eyes wild but alive. Alina glanced at him, heart pounding, realization dawning. "You did it, you survived. You carried the truth with you." Kellen gave a brief, grim smile. "Had to. If the world never knew, none of this mattered. None of us mattered." Alina exhaled, clutching the dog tags. "And now they'll pay. The betrayal, the lies, all of it ends." He shook his head. "Not ends, not yet, but it starts here." The van roared into the darkness, leaving behind the maze of tunnels, the echo of gunfire, the shadows of pursuers. The secure drive held evidence that could expose the corruption, the betrayal, the orchestrated deaths. The mission that had seemed over months ago was finally coming to light. Alina looked at Kellen, his scars, his eyes, the man who had been thought dead. "Why did you let them think you were gone?" He exhaled slowly, the weight of months, of survival, of planning etched into every line of his face. "Because I had to move in the shadows to protect you, to protect the truth. Some things can't survive in daylight until the time is right." Alina nodded, understanding now the sacrifices he had made, the lives he had saved, the conspiracy he had dismantled quietly while the world thought him dead. Dalton drove, still tense, eyes scanning the road. He broke the silence finally. "Rays, you were right, he's alive, and we just survived hell." Alina's hand brushed the dog tags. The silver trident glinted in the faint interior light, a symbol of sacrifice, loyalty, and resilience. She looked forward, eyes sharp, determined. The fight wasn't over, not entirely, but for the first time the truth was in their hands. Somewhere in the darkness ahead, the betrayers lurked, unaware that the evidence could expose them all. And somewhere, Kellen and Alina knew, they had survived not just to live, but to finally bring justice. The van disappeared into the night, carrying the truth, carrying the past, carrying the people who had survived betrayal, death, and shadows, ready to finally face what the world had tried to bury. Alina exhaled, heart steadying, mind racing. The mission was finally hers to finish. And this time, nothing would stop her.